All right. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everybody, wherever you may be, whatever time it may be. Welcome to Mom's Movement and Mindset, how to break through resistance and transform your body and mind. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with someone who I have never spoken with before. She is a human relations expert, has founded her own nonprofit for children, Soul, and helps with children to self-regulate and develop empathy. And she's also the author of The 5 Archetypes, Discover Your True Nature and Transform Your Life and Relationships. And with that, I give you Carey Davidson. Hey, Carey.
Hey, Don. It's so nice to be hanging out with you today. Thank you for the invitation.
Of course. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule. I'm really excited for the value and everything you're going to bring to the table today. So we'll just jump right in. So obviously the big part of this interview series is resistance and what exactly that is. So let's start there, just based on your experience working with clients and also people who you had the potential to work with, but maybe they didn't take that step. But either way, like resistance, how would you define that? Like, what is resistance to you?
Well, resistance is resistant to what, right? We're resisting change. We're resisting going from the status quo to something else. And for the most part, change causes discomfort. So, resistance in my experience, certainly at work and in my everyday life, is resisting discomfort, is resisting chaos or change. We like to have predictability. We like to know that things are staying the same and that if we just keep doing what we're doing, everything's going to be fine. And so I would say, resistance is not wanting to feel discomfort, not wanting to do something that's different, even if there's, the potential for a reward. Like some of us don't want to exercise, like it just is easier not to, and it's more enjoyable not to, even though if I did it for a month, my body would feel better. But there's chaos in it. There's discomfort. We know you lift weights, your muscles are going to hurt the next morning. Who wants to feel discomfort? So that's kind of my picture of resistance. I don't know if that
I love that too. I speak to a lot of people and with my own clients, and I refer to resistance sometimes even as our ego. I say that our ego, its job is to keep us comfortable, and to keep us from feeling uncomfortable. And obviously, and the other thing I'll say is it speaks to us in our own voice. And so it makes it hard to not want to listen to it,
Yeah.
and that could be the challenging part about it.
Yeah.
So you got this book, right? The 5 Archetypes, and that's what we're going to take kind of a deeper dive into. Each one of these archetypes, you work with clients in helping them to identify kind of which one they primarily are. And that helps you to then work with them as far as how they're going to move forward based on their traits, their characteristics. So can you just let's start by like, what are the 5 archetypes? And then we'll go like kind of one by one, like what it is, kind of what that means for somebody if they are that, right? So we'll just go about it that way.
Sure. So these 5 archetypes are based in nature, human nature, and the nature around us. They are fire, earth, metal, water, and wood. And they correspond to how we engage with our environment, our internal environment and our external environment. And when we understand the balance of the 5 within us, because we all have all 5, we can create a path to dissolving that resistance. And so that's why I love using this, because we can't trick ourselves. Like you were saying, it's like, it sounds so good to each person to sit in their like resistance. So this way, this method helps you predict, understand, and then bust through resistance for people.
Awesome. And I know, like, obviously I was kind of curious myself. So I took your assessment, and I know I was primarily metal, but I was fairly close, like in all other restraints.
Mm-hmm.
But anyhow, let's start with wood. So let's say you have a client sitting in front of you, and after they take your assessment as that starting point, and they're wood, like, how is it, what's maybe one way you would kind of lead that person to their next step based on that personality type?
So wood people, their biggest fear revolves around confinement. Anything or anyone getting in their way of doing something fast, of winning, of being best, right? So they're going to get stuck in places where there's the potential for criticism. They take criticism um, very intensely, more than the other types, even when something is not intended to be. So their resistance is going to be, you'll find it around you telling them there's only one way to do things. There's only, they want to know that they can bust through boundaries. They love a challenge. They love a choice. They don't want you to tell them, here's your plan and you have to stick to it. They will resist that. Naturally, they will resist that. So there are very particular ways for wood people, for like a trainer or a coach to pull a wood person out of that space. And it's important to know, as the coach, your relationship to wood's way of growth, because you may think that that's, not useful, right? So the coach also needs to deal with their own stuff when dealing with each of the types. So that's kind of, woods, where wood is going to find resistance.
Cool. So now let's say I'm hypothetically, I'm a wood person. Because I definitely, even though maybe I'm primarily metal, I can relate to some of what you just said. Boundaries specifically, because I know sometimes, like, instead of just accepting of like what is, a lot of times I've had clients, they want to just make excuses for, or try and speak in or tell themselves their own story as to why not. So if you have a wood person in front of you, right, for example, and I'm putting up some resistance, do you have any kind of like techniques that you would work with that person specifically to kind of help them get past those barriers?
Yeah, so someone whose primary is wood is soothed through fire. And that means giving them hope, optimism, playfulness, joy, laughter, taking a break, and stroking their ego, telling them how freaking amazing they look. And oh my gosh, check out how much weight you're lifting. And look at how well you've done. Boost, really giving them an ego boost will help them feel more like they can keep going, like they're not getting stuck in a boring pattern of the same thing all the time. That's what will keep them resisting.
Got you. Wow, that's so you got to come at a wood person with the traits of a fire. Is what you're saying? Okay,
Yeah,
cool. So why don't we just transition to fire then? So
yeah.
if somebody is a fire personality, what does that mean? All right, we'll start there.
So fire people, I know this really well. Wonder why. Fire people get hung up in having fun, in pleasure. If it's not fun, they're not going to do it. They get bored easily. They need variety. So they're not likely to keep at a plan if it's too repetitive and too boring. If you give a fire person a lot of different choices, like, hey, if you're creating a meal plan for them, for example, like, here's 5 different breakfasts you could choose from, and they all work. And that way there's no boredom. There's movement, there's creativity, there's fire people do what they're in the mood to do, what they feel like doing, because it brings them pleasure. And some mornings, strawberry yogurt will bring them pleasure, and the next morning it's a smoothie, and the next morning it's an avocado toast. They don't want to be like tied in. It's somewhat similar to wood, but wood people's fear is around confinement, and that's where they get stuck. Fires is around loss of pleasure, loss of love, loss of being seen. And so the way you pull a fire person out of getting stuck or out of resistance is through earth, right? So these go in this very specific cycle. Earth is interesting. It's a mind, body, spirit system. So it's not all just behavioral or conversations or the way you talk to someone. Earth is about food. It's about digestion. So sometimes you can pull them out by inviting them to a meal, by giving them like something sweet, like an apple or a date or something to eat. The other way to pull fire out of resistance is through conversation, harmony, reminding the fire person that you're not leaving them. You're always there and you can trust me. And I have the tools to help you. We're gonna make this work. You're not gonna be alone. Fire gets afraid when they think they're gonna be ignored or left out. And so that will soothe them back into a growth mindset around doing what they're supposed to do.
So a little bit on the lighter side.
Wait, so you got to feed me.
Yeah,
and remind
that's
me
what I was,
that you're never leaving.
that's what I was going to touch on. I was like, the first thing that popped in my mind is that commercial, like, you're not you when you're hungry, you know, so have a Snickers. So it's like, have a date, have a strawberry, what, you know, whatever. So you kind of bring them back down to like earth where you can like communicate with them.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I mean, I like the kind of the progression where the rhythm we got going here. Cause like, honestly, I haven't listed in the exact order that you're speaking. So you touched on earth. So let's go into earth, you know, let's break down their characteristics, I guess, and what would potentially get in their way.
Yeah. So earth people need to do things together. They like unity. They like community. They might want to be part of a group effort to do something like, hey, we're starting a cohort, right, of people who are going to go through this process of weight loss or of eating better or, some effort as a team. And they want to be part of that because they like to nurture and empathize with other people. They will get stuck over focusing on needing to please you if you're their coach. They will worry that they're not giving you an enjoyable experience as a coach. They think more about everyone else than they do about themselves, and they may even get to obsessively think about it, so much so that they feel paralyzed, that they can't move forward, they can't take on, they need to stay home, like they feel guilty about causing you distress as their coach. so earth people, the way to soothe them is through metal. And so metal, the types of metal things you can do, like they want to know the right way. They want a plan, they want structure, they want a consistency to the relationship. It helps them structure their overactive minds and thoughts, like the structure to the day, right, will actually calm the rumination. And so saying like, hey, you got to show up every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9, it actually, that will create a soothing effect for earth and keep them on track.
So bringing like a little bit of some decisiveness into their life if you were kind of working with them or leading them. I guess not the leadership aspect, or the coach aspect, or that side of things. But as far as the earth is concerned, the person themselves, it seems like there's some people involved there as well. You know, from how you described them. Would you say that's true, or is that a little off? Or
yeah, it's definitely, of the 5, they're pretty strong in that capacity. They really do care. They have huge hearts, and they care more about nurturing everyone else many times than taking care of their own needs. Their gift to the world is empathy. They're the ones among us who not only understand what everyone around them needs, but needs to give it to them, knows how to take care of them, knows how to turn chaos into order, and thrives in being needed. The worst thing you can do, to an earth person is say, nobody needs your chicken soup. Like, I know you were nice and I have a cold and I don't need it. I don't need your cookies. I don't need your conversation or your ideas. That would be devastating to an earth person. So yeah, there is, I guess, a component of that. And if you see that in someone around you a lot as a pattern, you can probably bank on the fact that their primary is earth, although each of the 5 has the capacity to do that for different reasons at different times, depending on the context of their situation and their environment. But if you see it as a pattern in someone, they're likely primary earth.
yeah, I mean, it's really kind of becoming abundantly clear why, like, as a coach, or as a friend or as a family member, having any kind of information about this, knowledge of these archetypes at all can improve our relationships with those around us in our life. And they're intertwined as well. So it's like there's a benefit there too.
Yeah.
Cool. So I mean, you kind of touched on it, like just that transition there, but you mentioned metal. So I think logically we'll just keep moving on that way. We got metal and then one after that. So as far as metal is concerned, and I know I took your assessment and I was primarily metal. So with that said, like what are those characteristics or character traits that they exhibit?
So metal people, as far as resistance is concerned, can over focus on what's wrong rather than what's right when they feel stressed. Um, Metal people are highly critical of themselves and others, and they need to know that what they're doing is right. And so when they over focus on whether or not something is right, they may stop altogether, like do nothing and reevaluate and make sure, like take the bits, like if you were to create a plan for someone, they might take it apart and be like, I'm not sure if this part actually is right. And then they'll research it and they'll ask their friends. Like they can get stuck in a different way from Earth. Earth gets stuck ruminating and worrying about pleasing you. Metal can stop everything altogether to reevaluate whether or not it is right or proper or refined enough or the perfect way to execute, this life-changing work. And so their biggest fears revolve around being wrong or making a mistake. And so that can stop them in their tracks. And metal people will soothe through water. So water is about pausing, honoring the fact that the person needs a break. Water is about taking a slow walk outside. It's about reflecting, getting creative, using innovation and imagination. As a coach, you might say to your stuck metal clients, how would you imagine this could be great for you? Like take them outside of that rigid, right or wrong, good or bad thinking, and expand their imagination into a quiet, reflective place. Um, Philosophy, dreaming, go home and journal, like say to your metal client, go home and journal about, if I, did XYZ, can you imagine what your life would be? What could it be? What can you create? So those are some things that you can do to help a metal person in resistance mode kind of move through that.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I could definitely relate to a lot of that, for sure. I know, like me personally, it's definitely like I've gotten better just trying to bring more awareness and like pausing a little bit more. But yeah, when I get overwhelmed immediately, instead of just being sometimes grateful for everything that I have and that I've been able to do, I immediately think of like what's not there, what hasn't happened yet, right? I'm never going to get there. All lies, right? None of there's no truth. It's not based in fact, it's just me speaking to me. So that's the good thing. Anyhow, let's lastly we'll touch on water, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So water people are kind of the quietest of the bunch. They like to be alone. They get addicted to thinking. So they may think more than they communicate with you. So your water clients may not be terribly communicative or sociable, and you might wonder, where'd they go? Did they fall off the face of the earth? And then you'll get this long email or text in 3 weeks and be like, I was thinking about you, Dawn, and I really love what you were saying, and it made me think of da 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 da. And I think I really would like to move this forward. So how about another 3 weeks? We'll you know, they are the least connected to the physical needs of the body of the five. Imagine like someone who gets addicted to thinking. They're very heady. They're very they're philosophers. They are the dreamers. They are deep listeners. They need to distill the truth out of mystery. That's their focus. They tend to forget to go to sleep at night, forget to eat, or eat all day and not realize they ate all day. So there is that like disconnect with the physical needs of the body. So water people, they'll get stuck in isolation, in thinking too much. That's where their resistance, you'll feel like they're resisting the work when in fact they're just addicted to the thing they love to do and they don't think there's anything wrong with. The same as each of us has one of those, right? Like you mentioned in the beginning, like what's wrong with thinking all the time? There's nothing wrong. We love it. And so their way out is through wood exercises. So wood is confidence, building their confidence, helping them see that they can achieve things, helping them make a plan. Wood is about forward thinking, forward thinking, the way that metal is about the past, like worrying about like, oh, I haven't done it yet, I can't, all the negative stuff. Wood is all about like, let's move past this. Doesn't matter what went wrong. It doesn't matter about your boundaries and your rules. Like, let's just move. And so if you can imagine applying that kind of energy into your conversation with a water client who's kind of, you feel like is disappearing or not communicating, there's a soothing component in knowing for them, like having a plan and moving things forward and feeling confident enough to interact with you. Sometimes there's a loss of confidence, which contributes to that isolation and not communicating. There's a social interaction that is very uncomfortable for them. And so they don't want to be seen. So like exercising in a gym, that alone could be uncomfortable. So like if you say, hey, let's meet and go for a walk in the park, where there's not a lot of crowds or not a lot of people, they will feel better. Or if you give them something to do on their own and they just check in once a week, or less than once, every 2 weeks, so that's kind of what you'll see with water people.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, this is all like super, super powerful because I mean, I didn't know a lot of this, but it goes to show like how we're just so different. And how sometimes like, again, our own perception of somebody else could be entirely off, because we want to judge ourselves. But yeah, we don't know, like you said, the water person could seem like they're not there and then send you this like long-winded email, a couple of weeks later, and you're like, wow, I guess they were present, paying attention and whatever it is we were discussing. So I guess last thing I'll ask you is, I guess as far as anybody who is going to see this interview, as far as next steps are concerned, I feel like a logical like first step is, what am I? Like what archetype am I? So can you give them like a way to figure that out?
Yeah, I have a free assessment on my website, the one that you took. So at careydavidson.com, there's up at the navigation bar, the assessment, and you can take it and you'll see the breakdown of the 5 archetypes within your nature. And self-awareness in this way is like 75% of success, because now that you know who you are, like how you're going to feel about the other 4 types. So they'll rub you a certain way, they'll feel uncomfortable. You'll go into your own thought of like, well, there's a very specific metal way to do this. And then if you're working with anyone who's not metal, their reaction to that is going to be one of discomfort and one of resistance. And so once you understand who you are, you can completely adapt your strategy to your client, and you'll know how to nurture them the way they need to be nurtured, how to maintain that relationship. And there are very specific things you could do, like different types need certain emails, need certain types of communication to feel safe. Some need you to take them out to lunch or to have a coffee or to meet up. I mean, in COVID world, I don't, whatever, once we get back to 100% everything, your earth people will want to see you. I'll tell you that.
That'll be nice.
Yeah.
Awesome, cool. So then we'll, in addition to, obviously, when this goes out, we'll put the link in there to your assessment. That way people have that way to connect with you and also figure out again where they are, so they can even have a sense of like how they operate and how they can move forward. Lastly, again, for everybody at home watching this, whenever you may be watching it, we just had an awesome talk. I give you again, author of The 5 Archetypes, Discover Your True Nature and Transform Your Life and Relationships, Carey Davidson. Carey, thank you so much for being here. This was awesome.
So nice to be here. Thanks, Don.